My name is Diane Chesley, and it's a circuitous route how I came to the world of dyslexia. I taught for a number of years. Um, in the school that I was teaching in, we had special educators who were trained in Orton Gillingham, but I did not get involved with them. If I had children who had special needs, they went to the special educator and received the training. Um, but I kind of tucked that away in my memory. And then when I had my children, my first son, I was able to teach him to read before he went to school. Then came my twins. And I thought the teachers would earn their money because I couldn't teach them to read before they went to school. Well, as I said, I could teach my first son to read before he went to school. Not that the school picked up on the fact that he was reading before he went to school, but I taught him to read before he went to school. Um, my twins, I could not teach them. And one of them in particular was I couldn't even teach him his entire alphabet. As have learned since, to retain a dyslexic child is not to help a dyslexic child. They're still going to be dyslexic. So, um, what I had to do was to eventually homeschool my boys. And I was able to do that on a move. The family was moving to Hawaii. And I took that opportunity while we were in Hawaii to homeschool. I had them tested. In fact, I had the one that I thought needed the most help. I had him tested before we left to go to Hawaii. And at that time, the military did the testing, which was very interesting. Yes. The public school, I asked them to take a look at my sons, at my one son. And the teacher waited several weeks to get back to me. When she did, she wanted to talk about behavior. I said, I didn't want to talk about behavior. I called to talk about his progress. I don't think he's progressing in reading. And I said, I want to have him assessed. So they called in the psychologist. He came in and observed my son and said, we don't think testing is warranted. I said, oh, really? And when I went into his classroom, first of all, his back was facing the chalkboard. His back was facing the teacher if she stood at the front of the class. So I don't know what the psychologist was observing.
Mm.
And my son thought that the worst grade was the best grade. He didn't realize that that was not a good grade. So I'm thinking, wait a minute. So then at the end of that year, before we were to leave for Hawaii, I had him assessed by the military, and they said, um, we think he's dyslexic, and we think that he also has attentional issues. They were absolutely right. When I homeschooled, I would give a directed lesson. I'm a teacher now. I would give a directed lesson to both boys. One would start the exercise right after I gave the lesson. The other one would say, well, what do I do? And the other one would say, she just told you what to do. This happened every day. It wasn't once, it was every single day. If a parent is in my shoes, I would hope that they would educate themselves, first of all. And you have to be an advocate for your child. When you go into those meetings with teachers and special educators, it's not you sitting there. You have to kind of take yourself out of the equation. It's the advocate for your child. You can hire an advocate, but you know your child best. And you have to sit there as your child's advocate. Um, you also, I would say to a parent, it's not this year that you're concerned with. It is their future that you are concerned with. And I always felt that teachers or administrators were in it for the year, not the long run. And when I got to high school, I felt there as well that we weren't thinking about what comes after high school as opposed to the grade that we're in right this minute in time. So the preparation your child needs is preparing for what comes next, not the now, what comes next. Where is this child going to be in middle school? Where is this child going to be when he gets to high school? Where is he going to be when he gets to college? What does he need in place in order to be successful? That's the other thing. When one special educator told me, when I asked for what was it? She said something about spelling, um, being accountable for spelling mistakes. And I said, Richard Cohen, who writes for the Washington Post, is dyslexic. He can't spell. So let's don't get bogged down in minutia. You know, let's go for the big thing. I want him to be the journalist. I want him to, if he can't write, dictate. Let's figure out a way. Let's figure out a way. So, you're the advocate and you have to go in. And I think parents think that teachers know and administrators know. You know, educate yourself, then you know as much as they know.